They sold their souls to rock and almost lost themselves in the process. It was the summer of 1969. A young Steven Tyler, still going by Steven Tallarico, was drifting without a band when fate stepped in. At a modest lakeside town in New Hampshire, he met a dishwasher with a Les Paul, Joe Perry. That meeting at a restaurant called the Anchorage lit a fire that would change rock forever. Perry's bluesy riffs hit Tyler like a thunderbolt. Together with bassist Tom Hamilton and drummer Joey Kramer, they jammed in a dusty barn and found magic. By 1970, they formed Aerosmith, Boston's raw, hungry answer to the Rolling Stones. But this wasn't just another band. This was the start of a sound that would tear through America with dirty guitars, screaming vocals, and an energy that felt barely controllable. Nobody could have guessed that this drunken spark of destiny would ignite an empire. It was a humid summer in 1969, and Steven Tyler was wandering through Sunapee, New Hampshire, unsure of his musical future. One fateful night, he stepped into the barn, a rustic venue pulsing with the sound of the jam band. At the heart of it stood Joe Perry, a young guitarist who played with a raw, hypnotic style. Tyler was captivated. In that smoky room, among clinking beer glasses and buzzing amplifiers, a spark ignited. They spoke after the show, and almost instantly, a vision was born, a band that could echo the power of the Beatles and the reckless magic of the Rolling Stones. From that night, a brotherhood began, rooted in a shared obsession for music and rebellion. It wasn't fame they sought, but a sound that could shake souls. They didn't know it yet, but Aerosmith was just one step away from roaring into life. In 1973, the legend took shape. Their debut album, simply titled Aerosmith, was met with cold reception by critics, but contained a gem destined for eternity, Dream On. Initially ignored, that visceral ballad, written by a very young Steven Tyler on piano, slowly began to gain ground, until it became the anthem of a generation. Tyler's scratchy voice, capable of rising and breaking into an almost painful cry, was something never heard before. Joe Perry, at his side, built riffs that sounded like whiplash. The group stood out for its chaotic, visceral, authentic energy. They weren't glam, they weren't punk, they weren't blues, they were all of this and more. Aerosmith were a new beast, and it was starting to roar. In the years that followed, Aerosmith exploded like a bomb in the rock scene. With albums like Get Your Wings, 1974, and Toys in the Attic, 1975, the band reached the pinnacle of creativity and wildness. Sweet Emotion and Walk This Way became generational anthems, songs that mixed funk, hard rock, and unprecedented boldness. The concerts were pure electric chaos, with Tyler writhing on stage like a possessed preacher, while Perry made his guitar scream. But with success came excess. Drugs, alcohol, and internal tensions began to undermine the balance of the group. It was the price to pay for living every day as if it were your last. And they were paying for it dearly. In the late 70s, Aerosmith were on the verge of collapse. Excesses had taken over. The fights between Tyler and Perry were legendary, and the band seemed more like a powder keg ready to explode than a cohesive group. Joe Perry left the band in 1979, followed shortly after by Brad Whitford. The albums lost their bite, the public was starting to turn away, and Steven Tyler, destroyed by addictions, was unrecognizable. The epic of the fallen idols seemed to have reached the end of the line. Rock had changed, and Aerosmith seemed like just an old glory that was slowly fading away. But just when all seemed lost, something incredible happened, an unthinkable rebirth. Against all odds, Aerosmith rose from the ashes. In 1984, the original lineup reunited. Tyler, Perry, Whitford, Hamilton, and Kramer came back together, determined to take back everything they had lost. But nostalgia wasn't enough. They needed a spark. And that spark came in 1986, when they collaborated with Run DMC on a revolutionary rap rock version of Walk This Way. The success was global. Aerosmith were no longer just legends of the past. They had become pioneers, capable of reinventing themselves and conquering a new generation. From then on, it was a triumphal ride. Sold-out concerts, multi-platinum albums, and a renewed energy that consecrated them as rock immortals. In the 90s, Aerosmith reached heights of popularity that even they had never imagined. With albums like Get a Grip, 1993, driven by memorable hits like Cryin', Crazy, and Amazing, the band also conquered the hearts of the new generations. The music videos became true cult works, with the young Liv Tyler, Steven's daughter, stealing the scene on the screen. Then, in 1998, the peak came with I Don't Want to Miss a Thing, the soundtrack to the blockbuster Armageddon. It was their first single to reach the top of the Billboard charts, a global success that definitively consecrated them. Aerosmith were no longer just a band, but a universal pop symbol capable of dominating every era without ever losing their rock soul. As they entered the new millennium, Aerosmith demonstrated extraordinary resilience. Albums like Just Push Play, 2001, and Honkin' on Bobo, 2004, a tribute to their blues roots, showed that the desire to experiment was still alive. But it wasn't all easy. Internal tensions returned, especially between Steven Tyler and Joe Perry. Health problems, relapsed addictions, and moments of crisis repeatedly put the stability of the group at risk. Yet, each time, they managed to get back together, driven by a deep bond and an audience that never abandoned them. The tours continued to fill stadiums around the world, confirming that Aerosmith was now a living legend. Their rock wasn't just music, it was collective memory, a ritual shared by millions of fans. With over 50 years of career behind them, Aerosmith have shown that rock is not just a musical genre, but a language of the soul. They have defied oblivion, fashions, falls, and even themselves, always managing to be reborn. Steven Tyler, with his scratchy voice and his eternal boy energy, and Joe Perry, with his sharp and visceral riffs, have carved a sonic identity recognizable all over the world. Their songs continue to live, to vibrate in the hearts of those who have loved them since the 70s and of those who discover them today, perhaps thanks to an old record found by chance. Aerosmith were not just a band. They were, and still are, the soundtrack of millions of lives, the voice that screams when all is quiet, the spark that lights the fire inside. And if it is true that every great story deserves a final act, then let it be written with the volume at maximum. Aerosmith taught us that rock never gets old, it explodes. That passion never fades, it burns. And that sometimes to fly, all it takes is a song. Because as long as there is a guitar that screams, a voice that vibrates, and a heart that beats, Aerosmith will live forever.